everybody. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and talk with you guys. Is everyone able to see the screen and hear me? Okay, awesome. So I work here at UNC. I will talk a little bit about if I know of any services that are shared at other hospitals around here, because we, of course, like every hospital, have patients that come here from other hospitals for specialized treatment, or they're going to be going to another hospital for maybe a specific clinical trial. So I do have some experience in helping patients get from one hospital to the next and kind of set up services at their next hospital that they had here. So I work on a team. I'm going to just kind of say how it works here, and it's pretty much the same in most of the big hospitals. So when you're inpatient, you'll have an inpatient social worker that you can talk with, and when you're outpatient, it will switch to an outpatient team. And so I'm on the outpatient team. We work with all cancer patients here at UNC Cancer Hospital. We also service UNC Hillsborough, which is kind of the new location, and we work really closely with the UNC Rex social workers as well. We are a team, we're actually a team of 4. We have a new person that's starting, but we basically get pages and we get messages from providers, directly from providers. Sometimes patients self-refer. At your hospital, you could call the main line and say, I need to speak with a social worker in oncology, and they should be able to transfer you to whatever team or person they may have that covers it. At some of the hospitals, there may not be a social worker, but there could be like a nurse navigator that does many of the things that I talk about. Maybe not the clinical social work portion, but they can help you network you up with all the different things available at your hospital. This is just our little fancy, everybody's got a fancy quote for what their team does. This is our fancy quote. So we also provide urgent assistance and the ongoing support. So we are the urgent assistance if someone is here at an outpatient appointment and they're in crisis. Oftentimes that can be if they, got news about a recurrence or a diagnosis that they weren't expecting. And sometimes it's just very hard to really process that in the moment and just to be able to get stable enough to kind of hear the rest of what the team is saying. So we are paged to kind of come be with patients and help ground them and get them to a point where they feel like they can kind of continue with their appointment with their medical providers. So we are the on-site mental health crisis support. I'll talk a little bit later about sort of ongoing support. We help network people up with that, but at my hospital, the clinical social workers, we're not the ongoing counselors. And I know that's different at other hospitals. I think at UNC Rex, they have a bigger team because they also do the ongoing counseling and support for the cancer patients. So what we really work with is psychosocial issues, and that's a fancy way to just say an issue that affects mental health and directly impacts your ability to get treatment and to keep coming to your treatment and to work through challenges that come up. With cancer, because it's such a, really impactful diagnosis, it impacts you and your family and your finances, and treatment can be so long. Even if before in life kind of things were going well in most areas, cancer can really throw you for a loop and bring up things that you didn't realize you were going to experience. And so that's what we're really here to help with. Some examples, we help people with depression, anxiety, trying to figure out if they need ongoing regular support, if they explore with them, do they have something through their church that might be more helpful and feel more comfortable for them. But a lot of the psychosocial issues that we talk about, sometimes they're new to people. This is the first time they're experiencing that in their life. And so it can be really hard when you're trying to navigate all of your appointments and your chemotherapy and your new medications, trying to figure out where do I go for help now that I'm experiencing anxiety or I'm having panic attacks for the first time in my life? Do I go to my PCP for that? Does my oncologist help with that? It's kind of figuring out how do I even start? And so when patients have questions like that, that's when my team is paged and we come and meet with them and just explore what the issue is, what resources they may already have in their life. I think it's oftentimes patients realizing, oh my gosh, okay, I think that my pastor said he would meet with me, or I know my neighborhood has a group and that could provide me with just some social support. So it's really helping people explore these and then figuring out what's available at the hospital in the community. I'm going to really open this up for questions, but I just want to make sure I kind of covered everything. So this is one of our, when we have a lot of new providers or residents start, sometimes we're called in to just sort of go over the basics of what we do. And what we do really falls into financial support, mental health, supportive program. And at our hospital at UNC, we do a lot with transportation and lodging because we have people coming from all over the state for clinical trials or really specialized treatment. So as far as financial support, there's a lot available. So as social workers, when it comes to Social Security disability and employer-based disability, that's another one of those things that, you know, you don't even know how to ask your HR if you have this policy. And if they say you have this policy, you know, we can encourage you to say, get a copy of the policy so you know exactly what it is. We don't necessarily do the Social Security disability applications, but if you ever Googled Social Security disability, it's like hard to even know how to apply. I mean, 8,000 websites come up, and even when you're on the official one, it's not very clear. And then we can also kind of talk people through how Social Security disability and like employer disability work together, you know, and what can disqualify you for one or the other. We also help, sometimes people are denied Social Security disability, but then their diagnosis changes and maybe advances. And so we work with the treatment team to make sure that maybe the provider provides a letter that explains that person can use to appeal. So if you're confused about your disability application, you can definitely ask if your hospital has social workers that can kind of help you through the process. This is a big one that we do, screening and referrals to oncology financial grant programs. There's a pretty good amount of foundations in the triangle that are available for cancer patients. And a lot of them actually require that you are referred by a hospital social worker. So we are the ones doing the screenings to make sure that you qualify financially or whatever other different things they have for qualifying. And then with the patient's permission, we send the application to them and then they go from there. As far as like what our hospital offers, we have one foundation we work with really closely, the Cancer Patient Assistance Fund, and they provide household bill assistance and also gas cards. I work a lot with some of the smaller hospitals, like especially on the coast. Patients will come here for some part of their treatment and then they'll get like their ongoing infusions locally. And some of those smaller local cancer centers, they still have gas card programs that people are able to take advantage of. And so we are the ones that kind of do the screenings for that. And sort of if someone is saying, you know, I can't work, I don't have any PTO at work, so I'm not getting paid, like what can I do? We really screen to see, okay, well, you might qualify for this one and this one and this one, and here's how we can figure out, you know, what bills could be paid while you're waiting on disability. And then this is a huge one. At every major hospital, there's a financial assistance program that even if you have insurance, you can qualify based on income, and it will cover your medical bills, whatever insurance doesn't pay. Every hospital has wildly different ways that they evaluate for this and different income limits. At UNC, it's pretty clear. It's 250% of the federal poverty level. But the last time I had a patient going to Duke, I printed out their application so the patient could get on theirs. Theirs was actually very different. It was almost a sliding scale, I think, where, you know, if you had a certain income higher than what I just quoted, they may not forgive 100%, but they might forgive like 30%. So these are all programs that you would ask to speak to a financial navigator or a financial counselor. And it usually requires a good amount of documents like last year's taxes. And if your income has changed since last year's taxes, you're going to have to kind of prove how, maybe a letter from your employer. But most major hospitals have a program that will assist, and you can apply for it anytime. So if you don't qualify at the beginning of treatment, but then your income changes, it might be good to check back in and see if you qualify at that point. Most other hospitals also have something that's not quite as advertised, but it's sort of a catastrophic one where once you've completed treatment, if you never qualified for the financial assistance, but everything's finished processing, they'll kind of calculate a percentage that they might take off of your total bill. Here they call it, I think, catastrophic charity care. I'm not sure what it's called at other hospitals, but I have heard other patients tell me that once they got to the end of treatment, they were able to meet with someone, and there's, you know, a certain really complicated math formula, I'm sure, that they use to figure it out, but they were able to get a percentage off of their final bill. Same with pharmacy assistance. Our hospital has pharmacy assistance for people who are uninsured. That one's for only if you're uninsured. but it covers your medications through our outpatient pharmacy, and they can also be mailed. So there's a lot of different programs, and I would especially say to ask for social work if your financial situation changes while you're in treatment. I mean, that's an important time to kind of reevaluate and see what's available, because at that point you might qualify. Any questions so far? I'm okay kind of taking questions as they come. Not sure what'll be best for you guys. Just hop in if you have a question, okay? As far as mental health and emotional support, there's a lot we do with kind of general distress and coping in person. And I guess actually a lot of it, now that so much is virtual, we do phone calls as well. Sometimes people don't need an ongoing counselor, but they do need someone in that moment to kind of help ground them and figure out like how they're just going to kind of get through the rest of the day, because days, on site at a cancer hospital can be full of 19 appointments, it feels like. So we're really there for you if you need someone to process with right then, and the same for families. So here we have the Comprehensive Cancer Support Program, and there are dedicated counselors and psychiatrists who meet with oncology patients who need ongoing counseling, or maybe a medication evaluation to see if, while they're in treatment, they're going to need some medication assistance with their anxiety. We screen for that, and we figure out if maybe that's the best fit for the patient, or if they would be a better fit in the community, like if they want someone more local. And then we can help them figure out like how they can find someone, because that's sort of the other thing. If you Google therapist in Durham, you're going to have 1,000 people coming up. So it's sort of how to figure out like who takes my insurance, and what you're looking for as far as support. So we do the same day mental health evaluations, and we also refer people to things that we have in-house. They're all virtual now that everything's virtual, but we have some support groups, same with Rex, and we're actually starting some that kind of are going to work with the Rex, UNC Rex, so that our patients and Rex patients can come on whatever day is convenient for them. And we do have a caregivers conversation. So we are here for the patients and their caregivers, because cancer is so impactful as well for everyone around you. Sometimes I'm only meeting and speaking with caregivers because they're the ones who are really managing everything going on when things are getting really tough. We also have a support group just for the caregivers. They meet on Tuesdays, and they're back to meeting in person. It's a huge room, so they're able to space out. So we're able to kind of let people know what's available here as well while they're getting treatment here at UNC. As far as like other support, I'm actually sitting now in the Patient Family Resource Center, which is on the ground floor of our cancer hospital. It's through the Lineberger Center, and they have a number of things available here. There's massage chairs that are available for patients and their caregivers. You just walk in, and if they're open, you can have a session in that room. There's actual sunlight in this room as well. Like, I actually have sunlight, which is nice in a hospital. And there's a big calming like music around. And all you have to do is kind of like walk in and ask them. Let's see. Oh, thank you. I was wondering if that was a question. They have many other things here. They also have kind of private areas. If you have a really long day where you have, a big break between your labs and your infusion, this is a space where there's a couple of partitioned off areas, and there's some rooms where you can ask to just kind of sit in, so that you're not in a lobby with everyone else as you're, some days here are 10 or 12-hour days, and it can be hard to be around people that entire time. There's a lot of, I can't remember which hospital it is, but I know one I looked at recently also had an area where the oncology patients and their caregivers could go to just kind of decompress. It's quieter, and it's not a lobby, which those can get really tiresome mentally if you're spending most of your day in them. So this is the Patient Family Resource Center. They have it, and they also have a nurse navigator. So if you are an oncology patient at UNC, your provider has a nurse navigator that kind of helps manage everything, and they're the first ones reading your messages to the provider, and really doing a lot of the triaging. The Patient Family Resource Center here also has a nurse navigator. So if you leave your appointment and you forgot everything they said, she can kind of sit down with you and just sort of hit the high notes of what your provider note said. So there's all kind of little areas to sort of try to catch people if something may have gotten overlooked or they may have just been overwhelmed in the moment. We also have chaplain support at our hospital, and I think every major hospital has chaplain support. They typically, people think of them as inpatient, but I know here as an outpatient social worker, I lean on ours whenever it feels like, you know, there's a spiritual issue, or people are just really processing kind of the meaning and just sort of going over like, how did this happen? It can sometimes be good to meet with them. Almost every hospital, I would think, also has chapels and sort of meditation rooms. Here, there's like 3 chapels and a meditation room. And so those are other spaces that you can go that are kind of calming and can just sort of break up the days where you may be here a while when you're on site. Let's see, I've talked about the counselors that we have, and I think that's a really important thing to ask for if your hospital offers it. I think for patients going through cancer care, you know, it can be really specific to things that you're experiencing, and it's really nice to be able to talk with a counselor that is their specialty. They only work with cancer patients because it's such a unique population and such a long journey. It can be good to have that support that's specialized. And I know a lot of hospitals are moving to have that as well. Let's see, I think I finished this. It's not. Oh, there we go. Sorry, guys. Oh, supportive programs. So like I said, anytime you have a change financially or with your insurance, if you have questions, because it can be so overwhelming, ask if there's a social worker or a financial navigator that can help you. So when people are losing their health insurance, we do a lot of figuring out what their options are. So for example, I think I have up here Cobra Care. So here at UNC, any patient, not just oncology patients, if you lose your job and you're offered Cobra, you can apply for Cobra Care, which will actually cover your Cobra premium, because while Cobra is such a great thing, the cost of it is enormous. And so depending on your treatment plan and how often you're coming in, a social worker helps you apply to this program and they will cover your Cobra premiums. We have a number of oncology patients that are able to take advantage of that. And so Cobra continues your current insurance, but you would still have your copays, and essentially the premium for it is really high. So there's different programs and pockets of programs like this, like in different hospitals, and it's just important to ask, especially if you have a change. And then referrals. So there's a lot of stuff available in the community, but if you've never been without health insurance, it's hard to know if you qualify for Medicaid or how you apply, because again, if you Google apply for Medicaid, it's definitely not straightforward. And we actually have workers here at the hospital who help patients apply for Medicaid if they're disabled. And the same with housing and food pantries. If these are things that you've never had to think about before, it can be hard to know where to start. And so with social work, we really try to, I was about to say sit down, but I guess now in COVID, it's mostly over the phone or virtual. We really try to spend that time with patients to figure out like what's going to be the best fit for them now and ongoing. And then home aid programs, that ends up being such a big thing when you need it, especially for caregivers trying to figure out how we're going to figure out like who's going to come to the house and how often. And so we are really just walk people through that process. And this is big for UNC transportation and lodging, because we do have people come for specialized treatment and clinical trials. And so we screen and refer for like different programs. There's a couple of foundations that help us out pretty often with lodging patients depending on their income level and their needs. And so social work helps to sort of figure out, okay, you might qualify for this, or you might qualify for this, or if you have the financial means, but you just don't know where to start, we can sit down with you and just talk about your options. And then just I'm using a presentation I previously used for a different clinic. And so this was just sort of what we made to kind of give people, if they're interested in like what their lodging options are. We, like our team has just made a couple of different handouts that spell it out a little bit easier, because when you are needing lodging for cancer care, oftentimes it's not just one time. You're not just here for a surgery. You might be coming, every other week for 6 months. And so you can't just think about, okay, where am I going to be next week? It's going to be like, well, what am I going to do every 2 weeks? How am I going to pay for it? If I'm tired after treatment, do they have a shuttle that can take me there? How far is this hotel actually from the hospital? Because we all know if you're going to Duke, there's hundreds of hotels in Durham, but some of them are going to be a 30-minute drive in traffic. So it's kind of figuring out like what's actually going to be a good fit for you. And we as social work sit down with people and kind of talk through their options and talk with their caregivers and just kind of see what everyone's needs are to try to help them come up with a plan. Because short-term and long-term planning is so important when you're thinking about cancer care and how long it can be. That's all I have kind of formally. I wanted to look really quick. I made a note to make sure I wanted to make sure I kind of went over everything. Another big thing that I think people are surprised we have is we do have referrals in like an on-site law clinic. The CPAF, why am I blanking on what CPAF stands for? Anyway, we do have people that can sit down with you just if you have questions about power of attorney. We also have volunteers that can be helpful when you're getting it notarized, and we have patient relations that will come and notarize. So we do have patients who are filling out their power of attorney in their infusion, and we are able to get someone up there to go ahead and get it notarized and put in the chart. So when it comes to kind of like legal questions about things, there are people here and then people that we can directly refer you to that can help you kind of navigate all that as well.